The plane had been flying smoothly, and I was dozing off when the turbulence hit. At first, it was just a gentle shake, something that happens all the time during flights, but then it got worse. The cabin lights flickered, the overhead compartments rattled, and I felt the plane lurch violently. People around me started murmuring, nervously looking at each other. That's when the captain's voice came over the intercom, strained and breathless. "We're experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated, Anne." His voice cut out. The plane suddenly dropped like it had fallen off a cliff. Screams filled the cabin as everyone lurched forward, oxygen masks dropping from the ceiling. My heart pounded as I fumbled to grab the mask, securing it over my face, breathing in short, panicked gasps. The plane shook again, harder this time, and I could feel us descending fast. It was chaos. Luggage tumbled from the overhead bins, people crying, shouting, praying. The windows flashed with lightning, the storm outside raging as if it wanted to tear the plane apart. Through the chaos, I heard a deep rumble and engine failure. I didn't know. All I knew was that we were falling, and fast. There was a sudden, deafening roar, a feeling like my insides were being ripped out, and then impact. When I opened my eyes, everything was quiet. I blinked, the world around me blurry and disoriented. My body felt heavy, like I had been underwater for hours. Slowly, I realized I was still strapped to my seat, but everything around me had changed. The plane wasn't whole anymore. It was torn apart, scattered across the ground like broken toes. I looked around, my breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. Smoke drifted through the air, and the smell of burnt metal and fuel stung my nose. I unbuckled my seatbelt with shaking hands and stood, my legs wobbling beneath me. The plane had crashed in a dense forest, the trees towering high above, their branches shrouded in mist and shadow. But something was wrong. There was no movement, no sound except for the wind rustling through the leaves. I called out, my voice hoarse. "Hello, is anyone here?" No answer, only the silence. I staggered through the wreckage, my heart pounding in my chest. There were bodies, dozens of them still strapped to their seats, some twisted at unnatural angles, others motionless on the ground. I felt sick, bile rising in my throat. How was I the only one left alive? I walked further, desperate to find someone, anyone, but all I found was devastation. The front half of the plane was gone, swallowed by the forest, and the remaining section was mangled beyond recognition. As I stumbled through the debris, I started to notice something odd. The forest, it didn't feel right. The air was thick and heavy, as if the very atmosphere was pressing in on me. The trees seemed to close too tall, their bark blackened and gnarled, and the mist that clung to the ground unnaturally still. As night began to fall, I knew I had to find shelter. There was no way I could stay near the wreckage. The sight of the bodies was too much, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I gathered what supplies I could, a blanket, a bottle of water, a few granola bars, and set off into the forest, hoping to find higher ground or a clearing where I could see the sky. But as I ventured deeper into the woods, the unease grew. The silence was oppressive, and every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves set my nerves on edge. I kept looking over my shoulder, convinced I wasn't alone. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Was there someone else out there, something? Hours passed, and the darkness closed, and the forest was pitch black, the only light coming from the faint glow of the moon through the thick canopy. Exhausted, I found a small clearing and wrapped myself in the blanket. But sleep wouldn't come. The silence was too thick, too unnatural. That's when I heard it, a distant sound, like a low hum, almost like chanting. I bolted upright, heart hammering in my chest. I scanned the trees, squinting into the darkness, but saw nothing. The sound came again, closer this time. It wasn't human. It was low and guttural, like something old, something ancient. Panic gripped me as I realized I wasn't alone in this forest. I grabbed my makeshift supplies and ran, not caring where I was going, only that I needed to get away. The chanting grew louder, echoing through the trees, surrounding me from all sides. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my legs gave out beneath me. When I finally collapsed, gasping for air, the sound stopped, but the forest had changed. The trees seemed even closer now, their twisted branches reaching down like skeletal hands. The mist had thickened, swirling at my feet, and the air was colder, biting into my skin. That's when I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the clearing just beyond the reach of the moonlight. Tall and thin, its face obscured by the shadows, but its eyes glowed, pale and lifeless. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. It didn't move, it just watched, waiting. I don't know how long I stared at it, too afraid to blink, to breathe. But eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I scrambled to my feet and ran again, deeper into the forest, deeper into the unknown. But no matter how far I ran, I could still feel it, watching, following. The next day I found myself back at the wreckage. Somehow, despite running for hours, I had circled back. The bodies were still there, cold and motionless. But something was different. I wasn't alone anymore. The figure was standing among them, its glowing eyes locked on me. I'm still here, still running, but I know I can't escape. I survived the crash, but whatever was in this forest, whatever followed me from the wreckage, it's coming for me, and I don't think I'll survive this time.